That was pretty good. That was all right. What? What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review and recap. We're getting into every single spoiler for episodes 1 and 2 of Hawkeye, which is now streaming on Disney+. So again, if you haven't seen those 2 episodes and you want some spoiler-free thoughts, go ahead and tap on the link right above. Get into all my spoiler-free thoughts, and when you do watch those episodes, come back and let's talk down below in the comments about everything. Matter of fact, right now, go ahead and get loud and tell me what made your jaw hit the ground, and what kind of made you pretty excited for the future of this series. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit that thumbs up button, because I'm looking forward to covering Hawkeye on this channel as we get the rest of this season. Now, it's going to be a 6-episode miniseries. You're not getting a lot of content. I actually, after seeing the first 2 episodes, I do want more than just 6 episodes, but I have a funny feeling that they're really setting the stage for Kate Bishop, Hailee Steinfeld herself, because it seems like Jeremy Renner might be getting pushed to the side a little bit, but hey, we'll get into all that. So you know what, let's go ahead and start with episode 1. I got my notes right here, and I'm gonna try to speak properly. I said like episode run. What is that? Alrighty guys, so let's get started. So I thought we were gonna get right into Christmas time in New York City, but no, we get a flashback. 2012 splashes on the screen, and guys, well, it's time to revisit a very familiar scene. Yes, I'm talking about the attack on New York, the Avengers fighting off the Chitauri, and oh my gosh, I could not believe they opened up with this. Young Kate Bishop is on display with her mother Eleanor, who's played by Vera Farmiga, and her father. So it's interesting because I kind of wanted to see a little bit more of young Kate in this first episode. We didn't get much more outside of the intro, but I think what we got was pretty effective. It was really cool to witness that the one person to save young Kate's life really is Hawkeye. He fires a bow, destroys those Chitauri warriors that were really making a beeline right for Kate Bishop, and then what do you see off in the distance? The famous scene from Avengers where really Clint just jumps off the building, turns around, slow-mo, repels, or like shoots an arrow that allows him to repel into the building below, and basically saves his own hide. I thought it was beautifully done, and it was really cool to harken back to the original Avengers and set the stage a little bit, and it lets us know without really hitting us over the head with the fact that that's when Kate Bishop becomes enamored with Hawkeye, because, well, he saved her life. And only then do we really begin the episode, where we get this amazing intro title card sequence where you see a ton of stuff that's basically ripped from the Matt Fraction comic run. The different bits of artwork, the coloring, everything is basically right from those comics. And then after that, I mean, my mind was already kind of blown with those opening title cards, but I really love the fact that we get right into New York City. It's Christmas time. Guys, it is a beautiful time of the year. It's my favorite holiday. It really is my favorite season, and everything is looking pretty solid so far. But what I will tell you is that this episode is very much an intro table setting kind of episode, because we get introduced to Vera Farmiga's character Eleanor, who just found a new boyfriend named Jack, and of course we'll talk about Jack in a little bit. It just seems to be that a lot of these characters are getting introduced slowly, but the minute Hailee Steinfeld really hops on the scene is amazing. I love how they introduce her love of archery, where they show her at school on campus. She's at the top of a building overlooking what seems to be this bell off in the distance, and her friends are betting that Kate can't actually, well, I guess, shoot an arrow, cut the little string, and then ring the bell, and she does that eventually, but then she also destroys the tower. It just collapses. Yeah, it's going to be an expensive bill. But not only do we learn that she's an amazing archer, we learn that she's a black belt also. It's just so cool to see how this show really did sort of just ease us into the character of Kate Bishop. But don't worry, there's a heavy dosage of Jeremy Renner as well. Clint is taking his family to go see Rogers the Musical, which, if I had to make a guess, I'd imagine by the end of this week on Friday, we'll probably get this original cast recording for Rogers the Musical. Not only did it actually sound pretty good, but it was hilarious to see it all on display. We do learn, though, that is the moment where most of the audience figures out, well, Clint's got hearing loss, and his daughter's trying to speak to him, and eventually he just taps on his hearing aid, and his daughter says, "Did you turn your hearing aid off again?" So it's really kind of crazy, because it was in that moment where I felt kind of sympathetic, or yeah, I kind of did feel some sympathy for Clint, and I'm like, man, not only does he feel overlooked, because throughout that entire play he's noticing like, man, I really did take a backseat compared to Steve Rogers, and of course to Iron Man himself, but it's in that moment where he learns that he is kind of beaten up. And of course, after all of that, we do get thrown back to Kate, where we get introduced to some of Jack's rich friends. Now, Jack is played by Tony Dalton. He does a pretty darn decent job in episode 2. In episode 1, he was given like, generic kind of villain vibes. But there is this gentleman, his name is Armand, and I think it's Armand the Third or something like that. But he's a little, I don't know, a little mysterious. I kind of had a feeling at that very moment when Jack is at the gala with Eleanor, and then of course they meet up with Armand. I kind of had a feeling Armand and Jack, are they evil? And we really do learn that pretty quickly. They kind of got some evil undertones to both of their characters. However, before we get into the underground black market auction scene, we start to learn a little bit more about Kate and Eleanor's strained relationship. And it made me kind of sad because I actually thought Eleanor and Kate would have this awesome motherly, daughterly relationship, but they kind of don't. Kate is still trying to figure out her way in the world, and Eleanor is sort of with her head in the clouds, but there is something different about her character where it almost feels like they're reserving her character for the last maybe half of this series. But there's something we don't know about Eleanor. Even in the beginning of this episode, in the intro, Eleanor kind of disappears for a little bit when Kate is yelling mommy mommy, and then all of a sudden at the end, that's when Eleanor goes and grabs Kate. It's like, how did you not go and check on your daughter in the first place? There's something there, guys, and I just don't know what's going to happen, but I have a feeling they'll reveal to us whatever this mystery is surrounding Eleanor's character. But of course, after that conversation, we get Kate Bishop in action. She puts on a waiter's outfit. We learn that she's very slick and cunning, and she, well, goes downstairs where she's told explicitly she's not able to go to. So this underground black market scene was really interesting because the whole time I figured, okay, what are they building towards? Because yeah, there were artifacts that they were auctioning off and it seemed like it had a grimy tone to it, but then all of a sudden, what do they pull out? They pull out Ronan's blade, and not only Ronan's blade, I believe they pull out Ronan's suit, his costume. So those are the two things that I'm so sure Hawkeye wants to prevent from getting into the wrong hands, because if someone goes around torturing the city and torturing the entire country at one point, and if that ever happens, then he needs to prevent like the name from being smeared, because he was Ronan. He's probably afraid of people figuring it out and putting two and two together. But the Ronan blade was on auction, and I thought the whole time that Armand was gonna buy it with no opposition, but Jack continues to try to outbid his friend. And I'll be honest, y'all, this is rich people problems, because they were like, oh gosh, like how dare you like one-up me, you know what, I'll bet you $5,000 more, and then it gets to $40,000, I think it was, that it gets sold for, and I'm like, y'all, what are you doing? Like, why are you just throwing your money away like this? But that's the moment where we realize things are gonna go really wrong for everyone in that room. The Tracksuit Mafia blows a hole through the wall and is looking not only for the Ronin blade and costume, but it seems like they were also looking for a watch from the Avengers compound. And of course, through all the debris and the rubble, you see Jack go and pick up the Ronin blade. So as of now, guys, he still has the Ronin blade in his possession, and I'm gonna imagine that's not a good thing. However, I do have a theory about something that happens later on in this episode. So Kate, being her amazing self, decides it's time for action. What does she do? She throws on the Ronin suit. And I love this moment because it highlighted some of what I absolutely loved about these first two episodes, which is the exceptional filming within these action sequences, the hand-to-hand combat. Everything was easy to track, but man, Kate Bishop was crushing it. Hailee Steinfeld really is a bona fide star in the MCU, and this was the first instance where I thought, oh man, I'm gonna have so much fun with this series. So after she's done kicking butt and escaping, well, she goes on foot, and what happens? The Tracksuit Mafia kind of follows her. And as she's trying to escape, what happens? Well, Lucky the pizza dog, whom she sees for the second time, I believe Kate ran into Pizza Dog earlier in this episode. Well, Lucky runs out to the middle of the road, and Kate literally is like leaping over cars, baseball sliding in to grab Lucky and save Lucky from literally being killed by a truck, because Lucky is blind in one eye, so of course peripherals all thrown off. But it was in that moment, I think, where Lucky and Kate, they're together for life. And by this point in the episode, guys, we still don't have that Clint and Kate team up. Instead, we go right back to Clint leaving and still struggling with Natasha. I think it was his daughter that made a certain comment about Natasha, and I think, what was it, she's mentioned, I think, about being Hawkeye's best friend, and I thought, this is very sweet, but also this is very freaking sad. You can just tell that Clint is not only just struggling physically with his hearing loss, but he's also struggling mentally with the loss of his best friend. And I think it's just so beautifully woven into the story in this first episode. But this is the bomb drop moment, y'all. This is exactly the kicker for this episode. Kate stumbles upon, I believe it's Armand's mansion, and sees that Armand III is dead, literally just bleeding out, and notices these monogrammed candies or something. I don't know what they are, to be honest with you. She mentions it, but it's gonna come into play later on. And that's about it for episode 1, you guys. And I did think it's a decent overall premiere. It sets up for some fun and also kind of gives you a little bit of a cliffhanger ending there. There's no post-credits scene. Actually, there's no post-credits or mid-credits at all in episodes 1 and 2, but I did stay around just to make sure. It is just so interesting to see that they left, I guess, the best for last in episode 1. But now let's kind of switch gears and get into episode 2, because I will be honest, episode 2 is head and shoulders above episode 1. And the reason for it is because in episode 2 we literally start right where we left off, which I kind of forgot to mention, where Clint tracks down Kate and takes off the mask, is about to punch Kate and realizes this is just a kid. So immediately the humor kicks in. We have Jeremy Renner and Hailee Steinfeld just going back and forth with their dialogue, and it is absolutely aces. It worked for me completely, but it's from this point on that they essentially are attached at the hip. Clint Barton is really familiar with the Tracksuit Mafia and almost feels like, yeah, I can get rid of these guys. They're just these hokey villains. But Kate is not willing to, well, not fight alongside her favorite Avenger. And we learn a little bit more about this when Kate takes Clint back to his apartment because, well, Hawkeye just wants that darn suit back so he can put all this to rest and go home for Christmas to his family. But the Tracksuit Mafia, well, they did what they do best. I guess they tracked Kate Bishop because her name was on the buzzer at the bottom of that building. And this is where we get some amazing action, guys, where it just is incredible to see both Jeremy Renner and Hailee Steinfeld work alongside one another. We got Kate's archery on full display that really does impress Hawkeye, and then Hawkeye throwing back Molotov cocktails. It's just such a cool sequence. But hey guys, the apartment's on fire, so they gotta get out of there eventually, and they do, but at the expense of the fact that, oh boy, the suit is now missing, because once the firefighters arrive on the scene, Clint gets on a firefighter outfit and tries to go back upstairs and track down the suit. It's not there. But this all sets up for a really fun sequence that is one of the more hilarious moments across both episodes. Essentially, the person who's responsible for taking the Ronin suit, well, he is a part of this NYC LARPers group. Live action roleplay, y'all probably know what that already stands for. But man, Jeremy Renner just crushes it, because the minute he gets to this location where they're actually LARPing, it's so funny. And that's where we do get introduced to Grills, who I think will probably come back up on the scene eventually. Him and Jeremy Renner had some pretty darn good chemistry. So okay, I'm glad we were finally able to talk about that. I did not want to mention that in my spoiler-free review because that would have really spoiled the fun. However, there is a very important moment before Clint does go to the NYC LARPers meetup and gets his suit back. There's news now that is linking Ronin to the possible, or not to the possible death, but to the death of Armand. So essentially the news is trying to say, well, if Ronin was running around and we already know he's a mass murderer, maybe he did kill Armand. And that, to me, is going to cause a lot of issues. And of course, in this episode, we do get this amazing standoff between Jack and Kate at the dinner table, which I absolutely loved. And they're just like fencing, and it's amazing. I'm not even kidding, by the way. They're fencing in the middle of this dining room. I guess rich people have really big dining rooms, I don't know, but it was just incredible to see how Hailee Steinfeld and Tony Dalton were able to just sort of play off one another. And that's, I think, where Tony Dalton's acting was at its best. But y'all, there's another bombshell moment here, because Kate finds out that, well, Jack has the same monogrammed candies from Armand's mansion. So what does she do? Probably everything that I did in that moment, where I'm like, Jack killed Armand. But of course, Kate doesn't just say, where'd you get that butterscotch from? She's probably going to try to do a little bit of investigating herself. I just love the fact that Kate is starting to use gadgetry in this episode too, where she uses the Bishop security tracking system, which is actually a little bit scary. But she was using this device to go and try to find Clint because he was captured by the Tracksuit Mafia, although it was on purpose, because him and Laura Barton, basically, they said, you want to do the whole catch and release, the old Natasha style, like, that was kind of cute too, but I hope they kind of stop with the Black Widow references eventually. It's just going to get a little old. However, I will say that Clint wanted to get captured. However, I'm not so sure he's ready for who actually is leading the Tracksuit Mafia. So eventually the interrogation kind of just doesn't go anywhere, but the Mafia leader is revealed. No name, but y'all, it is Echo. This moment was crazy, y'all. I cannot believe it. I believe Echo is played by Alakwa Cox. I want to say it, pronounce that properly, but Alakwa Cox, oh my gosh. First of all, great casting. Second of all, I love the fact that they casted a deaf actress to play the role of Echo, who we know is also suffering from hearing loss. But honestly, y'all, I avoided all the leaks, all the reveals. I didn't even look at any of the cast photos, so I didn't even know Echo was going to be introduced in Hawkeye. And after Disney Plus Day and them talking more about Echo, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So now what's next? What other major player gets introduced in Hawkeye? But I do think that the stage is set. It's going to be Kate and Clint versus Echo, and I'm so excited for this because Alakwa Cox actually, even though she's a young actress in terms of her experience, I feel like she's gonna fit into this role perfectly. And then of course the cherry on top of the cake was the end credits artwork. I mean, again, just stripping it straight from the Matt Fraction comic book run, and they had a very effective use of Depeche Mode. Seriously, that song, I've never heard it before, but in the context of the episode, I'm like, I can vibe with this, and so can Echo, because she put her hand on the speaker, I'm guessing to feel the vibration and sort of, well, essentially listen to the song. So I thought it was beautifully done, an amazing final act for episode 2, and it's really just the best episode so far, not only just because of that cliffhanger, but because all the elements that make this show great and will make this show great are found in episode 2. They got the comedic timing between Hailee Steinfeld and Jeremy Renner. You have some of the drama brewing now between Tony Dalton, of course, and Hailee Steinfeld. I should probably use their character names, between Kate and Jack, but I do think that this episode is really kind of paving the way forward. I feel like the main antagonist is going to be Echo and the Tracksuit Mafia, but there is this B plot, and that does involve Jack. What is he up to, and why does he want this Ronin blade for himself? And of course, this episode proved to me that Kate and Clint are so far the best duo since Wanda and Vision. I'm not even lying, y'all, and that's a lot of praise for me because WandaVision is my favorite show in the MCU so far, but man, something about these two in Hawkeye that just really works for me. So yes, I really enjoyed both of these episodes, and I cannot wait to go and rewatch both of them again and again. Disney Plus, they were so generous, they gave me both of these episodes early for a review, but only for 48 hours, so I didn't get to watch them that much. But y'all, again, there you have it. That's my real review and recap for episodes 1 and 2 of Hawkeye. Now I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about these episodes. Go ahead and get loud down below. Spoilers away. Go ahead, sound off on everything. Just no like leaks or anything. We don't need that, y'all. We just want to talk about what we've already seen in episodes 1 and 2. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below. Subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the big thumbs up button if you're a fan of recaps and reviews just like this. Y'all, it was so much fun talking Hawkeye. Finally, I can just talk about all these spoilers. I can't wait to do it again next week. Alrighty, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. But seriously, what producer do I have to talk to get more Pizza Dog in this series?